Okay. All right. Let's see what bad decisions the developers are making now. Okay.
Two weeks ago, we talked about balance and matchmaking in our blog update. Matchmaking has continued to be a big topic in the community, and it's
Because
something
you
we've
get
been
goals playing
focused
with
on
GMs.
internally. If it's important to you, then it's important for us to talk about.
Okay.
So I'd like to update you all on what we're seeing and doing. One note before we begin, I think we're at risk of sounding like a broken record with our communication on matchmaking. We're working on it and it's getting better, isn't the best message,
they're saying so.
especially when players are still experiencing bad matches. So, I wanted to share some data to help you better understand the state of matchmaking and the impact of some of our recent changes. Let's get into it. Over the past week, we've made changes to the system that have brought down the skill gap between players in a match significantly for high and low MMR matches. If you look at the ranked
Yet they haven't
skill difference
eliminated it.
chart below, you can see two spikes that negatively impacted match quality in Season 3 and the recent changes that have started bringing this back down. We're almost back to where we were when Season 3 started. Looking at the high MMR group, GM players and above, roughly half of our matches have an MMR range of about 4 to 5 divisions, while 25% are at a difference of about 5 to 6 divisions and the worst 1% of matches are at roughly 10 divisions. Grouping behavior drives a large part of this gap. Remember, in Masters, players can group with other players who are up to 5 divisions apart.
And divisions. That's like their full. So I don't understand how divisions work. I assume it's GM. So you have 5 divisions. Let's see. Watch ranking ranks. Yeah, so 5 divisions means basically if you're GM1, you can play with a Master 1 at 10 divisions. 5 divisions means it'll be basically just be GMs against GMs. Not the ranks, not 10 ranks apart.
Yo, how's it going, guys?
Yeah? Average. Guess, fuck are the lines are supposed to represent? They don't have any labels. Player delta. For 4 lines, there's 5 people in a match. Fuck's. I think this is out of 100%, so 0.8 is 80% higher than what it should be, and this is lower than what it should be. Player delta percentiles. What the fuck are these graphs? 80th percentile, 75th percentile, 95th percentile, 99th percentile of what? Dates. What's the fucking what's the what is the y-axis? What is the y-axis and what do each one of these represent? They're the percentile. 99th percentile, but what's I guess skill range? Then what does each line represent? 50th percent. I'm actually kind of curious what made these spike in the first place. I don't even know how to read this properly, but it makes me wonder what fucking caused the spikes in the first place here. I guess players coming back at the start of season 3. What's this one? This is season 3. What's this? Love is in the air event. 50th percentile. Half our matches have an MMR range of about 4 to 5 divisions, while 25% are at differences of about 5 to 6 divisions, and the worst 1% of matches are at roughly 10 divisions. Match player delta percentiles. I don't actually know how to interpret this. They're not explaining this well, and I think they're trying to be a little bit vague here with numbers, which is kind of weird. And it's like fucking trying to pull apart a marketing slide from Intel or something about an upcoming processor. Like they're intentionally trying to be obtuse. Lower is obviously better, but what is this supposed to represent? 1.8. Is that supposed to be deviations? Player delta percentiles. Differences in rate between people. I assume this is standard deviations. I believe they're using standard deviations, which obviously lower is better. That means you're closer to the center of. This is a fucking horrible graph. Who the fuck came? They're intentionally trying to do this so you can't actually pull numbers out of this. So if you have a normal distribution where you go up like this and like this, you have tail ends of the distribution. You want to be closer to the center of the distribution. That means there's less variation in it. You could also do it with variance, which is easier to understand. But I believe this is graph standard deviation. And high rank, I assume, is your MMR, which is, let's say this is GM. Then what are the percentiles? 99th percentile of a standard deviation. What the fuck are they doing? What is this? I guess this might be too statty for me. I assume those numbers are standard deviations, which lower would be better. Percentile, intermatch, player delta percentiles. The difference, I guess, between there isn't 5 lines though. The difference between all 5 players, but it's not, and it's those are supposed to be percentiles. Player delta percentiles. This is MMR. Why are they making standard deviations of percentiles? What? Looking at high MMR, roughly half our matches have an MMR range of 4 to 5 divisions. Dude, so like one of the first things you do, just like with programming, you fucking label your shit so people can understand your shit. Like just like with coding, you document everything. You document it so if someone comes along, they might not be knowing exactly what you're doing. You help them understand. This is like someone doodled this on their fucking lunch break. What the fuck is this? And then they didn't explain it. Like it'd be different if they actually explained it, like figure one, figure two, figure three sort of thing, and then in the actual lines here. Like I see lines and lower is better, and the lines went down, right? But they don't actually tell us what these lines mean. Like it says it's the percentiles, but this is low rank, so this is the 99th percentile of low rank players. So what? It'd be 99% of maybe that's it. Maybe it is worst 1% of matches, and this is wrong, by the way. This would be like low 1% in. So I think that's what this is. This is not, because this doesn't match. This can't be the amount of. I think this is standard deviations. This can't be the division difference. Player delta. So I guess maybe averaged across the entire group of players in the match. But then they also don't give you, like, there's a lot of ways they could have done this to make it much easier to understand. So what I think this is this is in standard deviations. This is the average difference in the worst 1% of matches. And 99th percentile would be 99% of matches. And that could be either the low end or the high end. It could be the least amount of deviation or the most amount of deviation. We're going to assume this is 1% worst, because 99th percentile doesn't tell you which direction this is going. So it's like 95th percentile does not tell you which way it's going. So this is the worst 5% of matches. This is the worst 25% of matches. And this is the worst 50% of matches, which is going to have a smaller and smaller number because you're including more and more of the distribution. Whoever fucking made these charts, fuck you, by the way. I'm just going to straight up say fuck you. Yeah, so I assume this is 90. This is the worst 1%, which makes it a shitty way of wording this, by the way. That's why in MSI Afterburner, it says 1% lows or 0.1% lows because it tells you which tail end it is. And I mean, you can kind of logic it out, but if someone's reading the chart in the first place and they don't know what it means, it doesn't help them out. Okay? Yeah. So being descriptive, just like on Nantech, they misconstrue 99th percentile with 1% lows. It's not the same thing. 1% lows, I mean, can mean the same thing, but it doesn't necessarily. It could also be 99th percentile could actually be this. It could be the 0.5, it'd be kind of a worthless graph, but you have 0.5% on one tail end and you have 0.5% on one end, and now you have the 99th percentile, which is the center portion, which excludes the outliers. I mean, it wouldn't actually be worthless because then you'd remove the worst players on the outside edge, and that also would not be what this graph is, because this is the difference between players, and we can see here 99th percentile is the highest number, which tells us that this is the 1% worst matches, 1% with the highest deviation between players. And I shouldn't need to do this. This is something that is literally taught to people, and they're supposed to be like, maybe I shouldn't word it this way. Because it could mean this is 99%, so you cut off the tail ends. And actually, that could have a meaning because you want to remove outliers from both ends of the spectrum, so you give you the best possible, most stable number where you remove the outliers, you snip the outliers off the edge. That could be 99th percentile. It doesn't tell you which end of the tail end it is, or whether or not it is inclusive, this is the 1%, or if this is the 99%, because it could be a percentile of either or. And I am assuming here that this is the 1% worst matches, so the most deviation is the 99th percentile, just like in when benchmarkers just fuck this up. And this is the 5% worst matches, which is why we can see it coming down. And this is 25. It's like they made a game to try and make you figure out in order for you to figure out how the numbers work, you have to understand. You have to be privy with stats to understand how their numbers. Yeah, they could have used charts here. They could use standard deviations. This isn't standard deviations, by the way, nor is variance, which would be another way of doing this. Would probably be better because this is less understandable than a standard deviation or variance, in my personal opinion, which is the amount of deviation in the chart itself. Yeah. And you could show the amount of variance in the match or the amount of standard deviations in each match, but they don't. Instead, they show the differences in the worst 1% of match. This worst 1%, worst 5%, worst 25%, and worst 50%, which is just half and half. They don't word it this way. And they could have just done all. For this, they could have just done all matches, overall all matches. Okay, so now looking over this again, it looks at the medium ranked, I assume is basically plat. In the worst matches, you're at 2.75, which is actually really high. But despite it being really high, there's no blips here on the radar, right? But at the low end and the low ends, there is. Their matchmaking, guys, by the way, is really fucked up. It is absolutely fucked up. They got a bunch of people trying to pull a bunch of different ways, and then they see a flat bar here, and they're thinking everything's working out properly when it's not. Like, it almost seems like they're making the matchmaker harder than it needs to be, and it is fucking them up. They're trying too hard to make the matchmaker good. Conversely, it actually looks like uh, it gets better. If you look here, when this goes up, this actually went down. It looks like whatever happened here when new people showed up, it actually improved their matchmaker ranking. According to these charts, it improved their matchmaker ranking. Whoever did this, like they must be inside their own head just fucking around with this shit. Because it doesn't look like it's working, and then at the same time, like the way they're parsing their numbers is probably leading to making it not work. This is really fucking weird. This took me a bit to figure out because they don't explain it, they don't label it properly, and at the same time, even though it is labeled properly, technically labeled properly, it's not understandable to whoever's looking at it. Yeah. So good, good. Number goes down. I mean, that's basically a takeaway, right? Number goes down, the better it is. But this is the average delta, and they don't explain that. The average delta between players, so the average difference between the players in the match is 1.8, 1.8 difference. This is not the min and the max. This is the average. This is the average in the worst 1% of their games at high MMR. All right, let's move along.
Okay, so that's where we were as of March 6th.
Okay.
Let's talk a bit about how our matchmaker was working at this point and the changes we're making to improve it. I'll try not to get too into the weeds. When our matchmaker tries to make a match, it looks for players as close to each other's MMR as possible. As it continues to search, it will expand to players with larger differences in skill.
Which will
Prior
increase
to season
and
3, we
decrease
had the ability
the
to
longer you
control
wait.
the rate of expansion independently for each queue. In Season 3, we changed how our matchmaker expands over time, but removed some of our control over per queue behavior. This meant that if we wanted to reduce the size of skill differences in competitive, we had to do the same thing in unranked and arcade. If we wanted to get shorter queue times for unranked by expanding
If we wanted to reduce the size of skill differences in competitive, we have to do the same thing in unranked and arcade. Why? Because they remove per control per queue. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just control each queue for unranked and ranked and make things stricter for things that matter, like competitive, and less strict for things like quick play and arcade, which don't matter, right? Because it's just throwing games together because it's not comp. Change how our matchmaker expands over time, but we remove some. It's not like you're throwing arcade players in with competitive players, so they have to be the same. Why the fuck would they do this? Like I said, I really don't think they know what the fuck they're doing, and they're just kind of just lollygagging through it. It's probably something to do with this being less work. My guess is they just made a general rule set, and they was like, fuck it, let's just do this. And as a way of not having to fuck around with the queues anymore. So they tried to streamline basically the queues from a coding perspective at the expense of what they're trying to do, which is making fair and balanced games. Yeah, it's not like, hey, look, we have to keep these guys equal because these arcade players are going to be thrown in with these comp players if they wait too long. No, they aren't. They're different queues. It doesn't matter. Why? They're looser. It's basic logic that they'd be looser in quick play and tighter in competitive. So why would you do this at the end of the day? I don't know.
If we wanted to get shorter queue times for unranked by expanding skill difference requirements, we could do that, but then competitive would have wider skill differences too.
Why? Why would you do like they're saying, oh, these two things are linked together, but why are they linked together? What did they do that now these have to be linked together? Why would they be linked together in the first place? They're different queues doing different things in their game that they're designing. Like you don't need to streamline this so you can spend more time just fucking, putting a dildo up your ass or something. I don't know what you do with your free time, but like this is part of your job. Why would you take this out of the queue system? Why like, hey guys, I mean, we could make the game a little bit looser, but we'd have to do it for arcade. It's like, is the end result here that they want the queue times in arcade and like the only thing they can assume is they want the queue times to be the same in arcade, competitive, and quick play, so that people won't play the two with a shorter queue time. Is that the end result that they're looking for here? That's the only thing I can surmise from this is they want to make sure the queue times are the same so people won't play quick play and arcade. People play quick play and arcade because they want to play quick play and arcade. It's nothing to do with queue times for the most part. I'm pretty sure most people do not play quick play because they're like, fuck man, the queues are so long for competitive. Maybe top 500 players are like that. Top 500 players are like 0.0001% of the player base. They don't fucking matter. Fuck off. Just like I say, ignore the lower 50% of matches. As far as game balance goes, top 500 is not something you balance around either. Like, it is absurd. And in and of itself, you're going to have players that are really, really good that will represent an absolutely tiny part of the player base that things should not be balanced around because people can't get to that point. If it becomes a big part of the player base, then you'd have to be like top 1%. That'd be a little bit different. Top 500 is not top 1%, though, or top 2% even. It's not. That's not what it is. So balancing around that or making queue changes around that, yeah, just because you don't want someone on stream to bitch about your queue times? Please, fuck off. Like, League of Legends has like 12-minute queues or something like that when you're at the top end. I don't know what they are now, but it used to be pretty high. I don't understand this. And obviously, players that are playing top 500, if you've seen the games that some of the top 500 players are playing, it really looks like it's just random players thrown together. Like, they aren't even representative of their skill tier. So, yeah. I don't know. It's not like you're watching an owl match every time you see top 500 players. It's just, it honestly just looks like you're watching masters or GMs play together. Like, it literally doesn't change anything. Yeah, I don't really get this. This is putting it aside. Hey, look at the graph with no labels, guys. Here, look at the y-axis here. Yeah, we don't even label the y-axis. That's fine. X-axis, which is x and y. Y-axis, right? It's y-axis. You look at our y-axis, no labels. You look at this is actually the average difference between players in this match. So you have someone that's like 5 tiers apart, 1 tier apart, 2 tiers apart, and then they average them all. And then this is the average number. They don't tell you that at any point in time here. Okay. And then this is the 1% lows. This is the 1% worst of their matches. This is the 5% worst of their matches. Except they do percentiles, and the percentiles could, well, technically right, could also represent they don't make it completely descriptive of what this is. You wouldn't want that. And this is 1% worst matches. The 99th percentile could be, once again, the section in the center of your distribution and 0.5% on the ends. Yeah. Or it could also be the center of the distribution and not the ends. You just chop off the ends because it can actually mean different things. Or it could be the top 99 percentile, the bottom 99 percentile, or the top 1% or the bottom low 1%. And you assume this based on the numbers here that this is the 1% worst matches. 1% worst deviations basically is what this is. But they don't tell you. Bravo, stats guy. Bravo. You got us good. Okay. Blizzard has no idea what the fuck they're doing. And once again, like, at no point here do they explain why they have the same ranking, the same queue times, or try to get the same queue system. The strictness of the queue system is the same for arcade. Why? Arcade, quick play, and comp. Why are they interlinked? That's the question here from all of this so far is why are all 3 systems interlinked? Why? And the only thing I could surmise is because it's based on trying to get exactly the same queue time so people will not prioritize those other 2 game types over competitive because they're probably seeing a drop in competitive players is my guess. And there's probably a shitload of people that play quick play despite quick play not being even that much fun. They need a new quick play mode. I've talked about this before. That's for a different video, different discussion. But basically, it needs to be more casual than it is because quick play isn't comp. It is where you just go to fuck around. And they should have mirror matching and like a 12v12 with just more time and just more meat into the grinder so people can just fuck around and do whatever they want without it really mattering because that's what people want to do, just like Team Fortress 2. They don't want to have a competitive experience when they play quick play. That's why they're playing quick play. Anyways, moving along.
In the patch we released on Tuesday, we implemented the first of a series of systemic changes. More are coming in Season 4, that give us back the flexibility to tune these modes separately and gives us new ways to tune the system. Competitive can once again have its own set of parameters for how wide the skill gap can be that is separate from our other modes. This week we will be tuning these values to tighten the skill gap in competitive as much as possible while keeping an eye on queue times for that mode. Additionally, in the mid-season patch we added the capability to sort parties together that have a similar player delta. We're now able to get similar parties together in a way that minimizes role delta, which has resulted in significantly lower party queue times. It also concentrates wide parties together, which has made a dent in our player MMR delta. Hopefully, that provides some much-needed context for all of you and helps you to see the amount of work going into the system. However, your experiences are what really matter. We'll be collecting a lot of data this week and listening to all of you as well.
Data
I'll be
points,
providing some
guys.
short updates soon, most likely through Twitter. That's
Why?
it. Hopefully we'll be moving on to other topics for future updates.
Literally
See you
post
all
it
in
on your
game.
fucking website, not on your Twitter. Your game, Overwatch is not your personal game. Do not post it on your Twitter. Post it on, unless it's on the official Twitter. Post it on the blog. Post it on Reddit under a developer name. Do not post it on your personal Twitter. Like I'm supposed to come in and give you engagement on your fucking timeline. Fuck off. You're a company, or you represent a company. Anyways. So, from what it looks like, I take that back, guys. What it looks like is they pushed a half-baked system into play. So, I'll take that back. It's not because they want to keep the modes they want to keep the modes identical in terms of queue time. Rather, they pumped a half-baked system live, and now they have to fix it, and they're fixing it. Huh. Okay. Yeah. So, that's a thing. Apparently, they didn't have the code in place to differentiate between the different game types, and now they do? Uh-huh. This is why work from home's ending, by the way. Holy shit. I would buy that. Yeah, that probably sounds more reasonable. This is just, hey, we haven't finished the code yet. Let's push what we have live and just band-aid it before we finish the code. Okay. Okay. Or they wanted to do it. I mean, there's a lot of ways they could have done this prior to, like if they're testing, they don't need to do this for competitive. They could have kept the old system competitive. I guess this was just hands down better than their old code. Once again, Overwatch 1 didn't really have these problems. They were all ironed out in season 1, or not season 1, like season 0 through season 2, I would say, is when they ironed out all these issues that they're running into right now. And I don't really see any benefit with what they're doing over Overwatch 1, besides the fact that reduced queue times is basically what it amounts to. And that's at the expense of strictness of the MMR between players. There's strictness between classes now, where there wasn't. It was just overall. But instead of having been relatively strict with MMR rating, now they're trying to reduce it so that you have faster queue times at the expense of balanced games, as you can see by watching people in top 500 play. So, yeah, I guess. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let's take a look at the Reddit here and see what people are talking about. Uh, obfuscate. Definition of obfuscate. Render obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. Yep. Sorry you can't group, but you're actually not getting the worst match making in the game right now according to this data. Tired of top 500 streamers whining about not being able to group and stomp players. Yep. I haven't watched any that have complained about that. I'm sure they exist, though. Director's take, but why is he never give? Ah. Simply showing the ranks of your teammates would go a long way in adjusting how to play in high skill deviation matches. I could see that. It also allow you to bitch about them and bitch about rank. Yeah, I'd assume that would be used for more evil than good in that case. Your win rate doesn't matter. It's based on who you're playing against. Win rate in general doesn't matter. Because if you're at the wrong rank, you are going to be put into matches where they're easier and you're going to win more, and your win rate's going to climb. So saying you're a gold tank and you've won 60% of your matches, for instance, doesn't mean you're going to be a phenomenal tank. That just means you're good against gold players, which means you're probably just better than gold. No rank, yeah, the difference here between rank and ELO, SR, MMR, whatever you want to call it, hidden MMR, is not the same as your actual rank is silly. I don't know why that exists. I don't know why that happens. The chart represents the rank difference between the lowest and highest rank in the match. I thought it was the average difference between the ranks. Good. Happy Satsang, guys. Hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. Make a highlight of this. In a second here, gotta make content for tubes. I am my own editor, so be nice to your teammates. They're trying. Okay, that's why you just don't even talk to your teammates. The best way of dealing with people in the game is just not to actually associate with them and just use pings, because that's all they need to know. You don't need to be their friend, because you aren't going to be their friend for the most part.